I've been photographing plants now for about 15 years, and what I've been trying to do is what the botanical illustrators of the last few hundred years had done. They lay them out so you can see the leaves clearly, show the flower in profile, show the buds and the way they form, and then show the flower from another angle so you can look how many petals it has and see the colour and formation of the thing. It was whilst photographing roses I got the idea for the television series. For the last 5 weeks we've been looking at them, and we've discovered how from 35 million years ago, through all the various developments, we have arrived at the roses of today. Just have a look at this. In the past, the ancient Alba roses were bred together with the autumn damask to produce the rose of the painters, the Rosa centifolia. The Gallica roses, the French roses, when bred with the Chinese roses, the China rose and the tea rose, eventually produced the hybrid teas. At this point, they needed another factor. They lacked strong, good yellow colours, and the Persian roses came in. By this time, you would have thought they had the whole colour range and everything they needed. But it isn't so. Today's breeders are carrying on, and they've got lots of exciting ideas for the future. Harvey Davidson, who lives in the Bay Area of San Francisco, describes himself as a backyard hybridist. In his half-acre garden, he's been carrying on a one-man crusade for the perfect rose over the last 35 years. His experiments have led to a number of very interesting results, not least of which is the creation of a line of thornless roses. This started with a plant 3 decades ago that is still an important parent today. Is this the one, Harvey? This was your first break?
That's right, Roger, 1961, and this is Smooth Sailing. Very nice rose. It was accidental. I was breeding for disease resistance, and along came Smooth Sailing, which is in fact the background parent of the full smooth line.
And it's smooth because?
Well, look at this. Of course, no thorns. We can just run on any of the smooth line. We can run our hand directly up the stem, and you can do that anywheres at all. So that this was a break from the general run of roses.
Harvey's experiments are wide-ranging. In these 46-ounce tomato juice cans, another unusual project is being developed. As with the thornless roses, these plants share a common parent.
This is Pink Favorite, which is a rose easily, say, 40 years old. Using this as a female, I crossed it with a rose called Simon Bolivar, and it produced the Supergloss rose, which currently is, well, it's first been sold as Shining Ruby.
Ah, this is another new thing you're exploring.
Another new line in which we're dealing with extremely glossy foliage.
And this certainly has it, doesn't it?
Certainly does, and I was able to use this rose and get a full line of colors. There have been people who have shown roses of this type at shows, and they've been disqualified because the judges assumed that they were polishing the roses with the leaves with oil.
I might have thought that, to tell you the truth. It looks as if you sprayed it.
Right, and no, this is the natural state of this rose, and this is pretty with flowers or without flowers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that where you see the future for you?
For me, that is the future, and that's the direction. And in broadening the scope of the colors into lavender and into having a full line of floribundas and minis. I already have some minis in thornless and high gloss. So, and climbers, and I have a bit of work to do.
The whole range.
Yeah,
what about blue roses? Have you?
Well, you know, genetically, we have no blue in the genetic structure for the rose. There are several companies, 3 in this area alone, around the Bay Area of San Francisco, that are competing, attempting to transfer the genetic material for color, the color blue, over into roses, and they're doing this by the use of petunia and delphinium and lobelia, from which they could get good blue if they succeed. And I will introduce the blue rose into the thornless rose and into the super gloss or high gloss series.
Yes, it's going to be a long way into the future, isn't it?
Give me 1 dozen roses, put my heart in beside them, and send them to the one I
Jackson and Perkins is a high-profile, high-tech organization with a massive annual turnover. I went there to learn something about the future of the cut rose. My guide was the Director of Research, Keith Zeary. What's the main difference with breeding cut flower roses like this?
Well, the major difference between these and garden roses is the different criteria we use in selecting cut flowers. We stress very heavily production, the amount of stems we can get from a square meter of greenhouse, the stem length, the vase life, fragrance.
Are some colors more popular than others for cut roses, Keith?
For the North American market, we stress very heavily red, which is a very popular color in North America. For the European market, we work very hard on pinks and yellows. Pinks blend well in the house in Europe in the dark days of winter when most roses are sold. Roses in Europe are an everyday occasion. They're not a gift item like they are in North America.
In North America, is it a very big business? Are a lot sold?
In the continental United States is over 1 billion stems a year. And those stems are going to be retailing for over $1 each.
So it's an enormous business.
It's a very big business.
Is that actually bigger than ordinary garden roses?
It's much bigger than garden roses. That's true all over the world.
Will a lot of these roses in the greenhouse be introduced into the market?
No, very few will. Out of all the roses that are in here, only 2 or 3 will eventually make it commercially.
Can you tell me which they are?
The first one is a big, long-stemmed yellow hybrid tea. It has a very large head, lovely fragrance, and it's a light yellow, and we're naming it Santa Fe. We also have a very long-stemmed red hybrid tea, typical North American rose. We're going to name it Magnum. It has wonderful vase life, very stiff petals. And the third rose is a fragrant white with pink blush hybrid tea. We haven't chosen a name for it, but we're budding it commercially this year, and we'll have a name for it this fall.
Another way of developing roses for the future is to think small. In California, there's a very big man who thinks very small. Since the 1930s, he's been developing miniature roses. Now he's well into his 80s, and he has ideas that will take him to over 100 by the time they come to fruition. Ralph Moore believes that his perfect rose is the one he hasn't bred yet. And it's that kind of philosophy that has kept him working and hoping for so long. His ideas start life in the seedling house. Here he's come to terms with the fact that some of the plants will come up fast, some will be slow, and others won't come up at all. That's pretty, isn't it? With like a sort of blushing effect.
You get that on a good big plant, why it might be quite attractive. I haven't had a chance to get in here lately to mark anything. I'm not too concerned because sometimes the second bloom will give you a better shot of it. Now, one that's full double like this, when it's propagated, may come two double.
Yes.
And that's the trouble with a lot of the old roses that we've got. They're difficult or impossible to breed from because they're so double that you can't get any pollen from them, and they won't set any seeds. So I look for things that are not quite that double. And we're looking for disease resistance. Maybe out of all of them, that's the most disease resistant one, but the flower's no good.
Yes.
You make the plant first, then hang the flowers on it.
This is flowering magnificently, Ralph.
It blooms just repeatedly, clear till fall, and you can just hedge it off if you want to, and it pops right back with blooms, and it comes. It's nice to cut. It keeps a long time as a cut flower, and you can get whole whole clusters of them usually. Sometimes it'll come individually, but you see the massive bloom.
What is it? I'm sorry to show my ignorance.
This is a work of art.
Work of art. And when did this come on the market?
About 4 years ago.
It's magnificent.
Whenever you want some flowers, you can always come out and get it on this.
Make a wonderful hedge.
I like the little things, so I crossed big ones and little ones, and some of them said that you couldn't do it, the chromosome number wasn't right and all this kind of a thing. But I figure if you can dream it, you can make it. Now, I'm using miniatures as a background because I believe they hold the key to many of the roses of the future. And this is a cross between the Golden Angel and the old Honorine de Breba. I don't know whether it's going to repeat bloom or not. It didn't repeat bloom last year, but it's got repeat back in it, and it's open enough that we can get pollen from it, so that it may be the beginning of a series
Some
of
other
these things. Yes.
direction you're going in.
Good.
Nice fragrance. It's a lovely fragrance. What do you call that? The fragrance? Do you think it's a bit of apple, that appley fragrance?
I didn't identify it. It's a fruity fragrance.
Fruity,
Yeah.
fruity, yeah. But look at the buds on that.
Come on in here, I want to show you something unusual.
Now what have you got, Ralph?
A slightly green one. It's hand painted, and I want to go back and cross it on yellow, see if we can't lay this pink or red on pure yellow.
On a pure yellow. But I love this green. It's amazing, the buds come out
Several
pure
arrangers have seen this
green.
and they like it.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of a mad rose, I suppose, this one, isn't
Oh,
it?
it is.
That
I say, it,
pure green buds, and then just as it ages, it starts to come through with the orange, and then you get a good painting on that.
there.
That's a beauty, isn't it? Yeah.
these are the halos, and I'm trying to build this up as fast as I can. There's the kind of a flower.
Let me have a look at that.
And here's some here.
So you've got a strong
This.
yellow halo, and then it's going back to red again.
Yeah.
So this is just something you spotted in one of these crossings you'd made, and you picked up on it and followed it for years?
Watching it, yeah.
It's got good markings. So Ralph,
We've got a first over here. Let's set this plant out of the way so that we can see that better. That's better. Now then.
this is a stunner, Ralph.
That's rugosa and moss.
And you've got rugosa type leaves, very pretty flowers. Is this on the market?
No. This is a total world supply right now.
What, these two plants here?
There's three plants. There's
Three plants is a total world
three
supply.
plants in the original plant.
Well, all right, Ralph, there's no such thing as a perfect rose, but this comes very, very close, I have to say.
The more I see of that, the better I like it.
And so do I. But it was time to think big again. And to do that, I had to return to Europe. Where we're going is somewhere in the south of France, and on the side of the roundabout, there's a little hint as to where roses are going. Just about everywhere, apparently. Beside motorways, in waste grounds, and covering unsightly buildings. Meilland roses in Provence are the ones with the vision, for they have been developing a race of large ground cover roses that they call landscape roses. The man responsible for the breeding program is hybridizer and geneticist Jacques Mouchot. I have to say, this is a ground cover, it's a shed cover rose, really, this one.
Actually, these plants are planted on a roof. It's a roof garden, and the plants are hanging down by themselves to the ground.
I see, so they would run down a slope
right.
or something like that. And that, when did you introduce this?
More than 15 years ago, it's Swanee.
Yes, it's just coming into flower, isn't it? It's a beautiful white one. And this beautiful orangey pink one?
This beautiful orangey pink one was bred in Japan by Seizo Suzuki and introduced in Europe by Meilland. The name of the variety is Ferdy.
And have you been breeding ones that are repeat flowering or continuous flowering?
Yes, the more we advance into breeding of these ground covers, we wanted to get the repeat back into those plants to have flowers all season, not only a magnificent spring flush, but also colors to be seen every day of the summer season. Well, this magnificent red is La Sevillana, the most popular landscape roses for Southern Europe. It does also very well in every places of the world, and this one has the exceptional capacity to produce, I would say, a two-wave flowering. A magnificent one in the springtime, and then another magnificent one all the way to Christmas in Italy and on the French Riviera.
Yes. In England, does it keep going that long, or?
It is the latest flowering variety I've ever met. It would not reach Christmas in England, that's for sure, no. But it would be the very last in flowers in any garden.
So quite possibly until November or something
certainly,
like that.
Certainly. Mm. We're working hard to get a disease-resistant yellow ground cover. So here we've got the yellow, we've got the floriferousness, but we haven't got the disease resistance. It's not disease resistant enough. At this time of the year, very early, you can see already many leaves are dropped, are down, so
yes.
It's a very good try, but it would be discarded.
It's really a miniature, this one, the flower.
Yes, it's miniature flowers, miniature leaves. It has some miniature blood in it.
Yes. What was that? If it's not a trade secret, the miniature blood?
It is a trade secret.
It is a trade secret. I knew I'd find one you couldn't tell me.
It's one step forward in a good direction. That's not enough.
Where do you see landscape roses going in the future?
We've been a long way already with landscape roses, but still we have room ahead of us to continue to improve what we've done. There is here a very good example of what the tomorrow's future is. This rose is almost indemn of disease. We've never spotted anything special on it. And we succeeded to bring back the fragrance in it. Even here, standing here, you can smell that wonderful coming yes. here. It's not quite a rose smell. It has been described by the perfumers we're working with like a lily of the valley on Frisia. It has so far all the features that we wanted to bring into a landscape roses. We always have to be ahead of demand and the needs. If not, we'll be always too late.
But there are some breeders who feel that to be ahead of the pack, they must look to the past for inspiration. And that's a belief shared by a woman in Los Angeles who stuffed her garden chock-a-block with roses created by the British breeder David Austin. Sharon Van Enu invited me to share her hot tub and her love of Austin's roses. Let me push these over towards you because they're some of your wonderful roses.
Oh, I love them. Absolutely adore them. This is what we do. We work hard in the garden all day, get hot, sweaty, dirty, climb in the hot tub with a glass of wine, and thoroughly enjoy our handiwork.
Floating away on the hot tub over here somewhere, we had a, well, that's Alchemist, which is a lovely old-fashioned looking rose, although it's a modern rose. But there's a David Austin rose. Wait a minute, I'm going to see if I can swim across here.
I've been collecting them now for about 5 years, and I have about 50 of them, different varieties, and I adore a lot of them. Rose growers in this country do not really specialize in roses that do well in our climate. So I grow unusual roses that do well in Southern California, but many of the roses that don't do well in England do very well here because they need the heat.
I think we ought to jump out of this tub, you know, and go and have a look at some roses. Come on, Sharon.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I want to get amongst them.
Oh, okay. I'd like to show you some of my Austin roses. These are my oldest ones, and they're really quite special. I really like them a lot. I like the soft colors and the soft look to them. This is one of my very favorite. This is Prospero. Prospero is considered by Mr. Austin to be a very fussy rose. I don't find that to be the case. In fact, it's a very hardy rose here. Has beautiful color, and as you can see, it has beautiful bloom.
It's such a wonderful combination of this red and then the fading out to this really deep sort of purpley color. I love it.
I do too, and it's one of those that he should make sure gets into the California market because it's very, very good.
Let's get around the front. I want to get around the front.
Okay, I'll show you the rest of them. They're out in the sun, so they're in full bloom already. This is my newest garden out front here. It's only about 15 feet deep, believe it or not.
How many roses?
Don't ask. I don't know. A lot. Yeah,
more?
at least. But this is one of my favorite climbers, which I've pegged down, and it blooms along the lateral. This is leander. I love the change in color.
Does Austin sell that as a climber?
I don't think so. I think it only blooms that way in California.
Yeah. But I mean, it's really a big shrub, isn't it, that you've trained out? And do you cut it back at all, or you just deadhead?
I just deadhead and shape it up. But one of the fun things is that even as the blooms are old, all they do is fade. They don't look spent. And so this rose looks beautiful in all its different shades.
Just subtly changed. It's beautiful,
yeah.
isn't it?
This is one of his newest, and I'm really fond of it. This is Sharifa asthma.
Yes.
And it has a very soft feel to it. And
I think it's the most perfect rose. And I adore the little touch of green around the buds that you get here.
Yeah.
And you just see it just slightly, and then it breaks with this beautiful, delicate blush sort of pink.
What I also like is that the first rose, the middle rose tends to bloom as this one has, see, and once that one goes, then the rest open up together, and then they open again, and it's so beautiful.
Tell me why David Austin roses? You've got loads and loads of David Austin roses.
Well, they're voluptuous, they're soft, they're round, they're curvy, and so am I.
David Austin breeds his roses in Shropshire, on land once occupied by the family farm. Initial success came in 1961 when he created his first rose, Constant Spry, a large, clear, warm pink rose with a myrrh-like fragrance. Its old rose appearance was the forerunner of a type of rose that David Austin named English roses. Into succeeding generations, he has developed fragrance, disease resistance, and the ability to repeat flower. The selection process extends 8 years. Out of an original 40,000 seedlings from the first year, only 6 will survive and find a place in commerce. David acknowledges the favoured few by marking them with green or white sticks. 1 green means worth observing, 2 that there is promise, a white stick indicates that he's very interested, and 2 predicts exceptional possibilities. Roses that make it onto the market also find a place in David's exhibition garden. Here you can see that the old-fashioned flowers of his English roses blend perfectly with the old roses that are his inspiration.
This rose is the wife of Bath, and it's a cross between one of the first repeat flowering seedlings from Constant Spry, crossed with a famous old hybrid tea called Caroline Testat. The hybrid tea itself was rather like an old rose, so we had quite a bit of old rose coming from both sides, and this has been very successful over the years.
And does it repeat flower, in fact?
It repeat flowers very regularly, yes.
Lovely.
And if you look across here, we've got 20 years later, a much more perfect flower, a much more perfect shape. You notice how all the petals in curve and the play of the petals in the centre.
Little tiny petals in the middle, and big, sort of broad petals out round the outside.
I think it just shows what you can do with that sort of a flower. The enormous potential, variety of form and that you have, which you couldn't possibly have in a hybrid tea for all their beauties, you know. And behind, we have really what is more of a rosette shape, although it starts as a rather shallow cup but ends up as a rosette. If you see over there, there's a nice shallow cup and becomes a sort of rosette like that.
There, the petals are folding back further.
Yes,
really.
They will go back until you've got a slightly cupped rosette. Other rosettes, the petals would have the curve.
This is a wonderful, healthy plant, too,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It's a remarkably healthy plant.
But what of the future? Can David maintain the standards of the rose type that he himself has created? All is revealed at the Chelsea Flower Show, the horticultural event of the year and a shop window for rose breeders. It is a golden opportunity to launch their latest creations and assess their potential. Among this year's Austin roses are...
Trousers got very deep, rich crimson, rather arching, natural sort of growth, not terribly robust, but St. Swithin, large, cupped flowers, rather like a redoute print type of thing, and Happy Child, for population concern, citrus yellow, and they're all fragrant.
The Chelsea Flower Show may be the annual realisation of top rose breeders' hopes and ambitions, but it's a beginning as well as an end. Next year there'll be a new development and a new trend. So where do we go from here? We've seen bright yellow roses, we've seen vermilion roses, strong orange roses, green roses even. Now the breeders tell us that what the public need are blue roses.
I'll send you a blue rose each time I'm thinking of you. One blue rose to say that I still love.
So here I am, back home in London, and my quest for the rose is at an end. I've travelled over 50,000 miles, gone back in time 35 million years, and even seen the shapes of things to come. I've had a fascinating time. I've found the answers to lots of my questions about roses. But one of the questions, is there such a thing as a perfect rose? And if so, what is it? Is really nonsensical. Ask me now, though, and I would say this one, alchemist. Just look at these old-fashioned quartered blooms on a strong, modern plant. It's flowering right here in Eccleston Square, London, where my search began.